Louis Katz has been performing stand-up comedy for more than 20 years, and he's bringing his act to Austin at Creek and the Cave on December 22nd and 23rd. Couple shows each night. You can go to creekandcave.com for info and more tickets. Before you do so, go to Louis' website, louiskatz.com, to check out his most recent stand-up special, which came out a couple months ago. It is called Present Tense. You can also follow him on social media through louiskatz.com, LOUISKATZ.com. Louis, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today? It's my pleasure, and I need to start by offering some congrats. Congratulations on your new special, Present Tense. Came out a couple months ago. Had a chance to watch it yesterday in preparation for this conversation. It is hilarious, dude. So great job on that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been going really well. You know, I decided to put it out on my own YouTube channel, and at the time I had under 2,000 subscribers, and somehow it's gotten now like 660,000 views, which is pretty amazing for not having very many subscribers at all at the beginning.
I'll do you one better than that, because I just checked the overall viewership numbers a few minutes ago. It has 666K viewers right now.
Whoa,
so apparently it's the devil's favorite special of 2023 too.
I'll take whoever support I can get.
Exactly. How great is it for comedians now to be able to put things out on their own through YouTube and not be as beholden to network and the corporate mindset that comes into play, especially because you need to be able to push the limits in comedy to do it right a lot of the time.
Well, it's cool because I was able to do everything exactly almost exactly how I wanted to do it within the budgetary restraints. But then on the other side, there is that. It's that I do have some ads on there, but not many. I'm not making much money back. So it has to lead to ticket sales. And I'm not sure if it means that, like, if really every year I'm supposed to just throw out this money into ads, which is basically is an ad for my live show. It's just a lot of money to spend on my own. So it's great to have the freedom, but I don't know. I'm worried about spending this much money every year for the rest of my comedy career. It's not good. It'd be nice to get paid for it like we used to, you know?
I feel like I didn't see a single ad when I watched the special. So do you pretty much just have them at the beginning and the end then?
I only actually have them at the very end, which you can do. You can have ads at the end, which make you a little bit of money. But I'm still very much in the red. I have not made any money back. I'm hoping to make money back on the album version, getting plays on Sirius XM and Pandora, which is the way that a lot of people make their money back on these specials. Maybe I'll add ads, but I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
Like front loading ads, but as you said, like I get to do it however I want. I don't want ads to be interrupting it, so I think at most I'll have ads in the beginning. I don't want it to be broken up in the middle. I want people to watch it all the way through, so I'm going to not have ads ever in the middle.
Good for you. Congratulations on that, because it can be disruptive. I know that people have gotten accustomed to watching comedy shows on networks and whatnot with ad breaks in them, but it's it just breaks up the flow of things.
Yeah, I mean, if I had it my way, it would be on a streaming platform, it would be on a cable platform, and there wouldn't be ads. So I'm going to recreate that experience for people that are watching on YouTube.
So I have to embarrassingly admit that I'm in that category of people that you talked about with Giannis Papas on his podcast within the last couple of months, that I just assumed that you were a New York guy, maybe a little bit of stereotyping, the name, the look, the fact that you are based out of New York right now. But you took a unique path to get to New York City comedy. You were actually born in Los Angeles. I believe went to college in the Bay Area before eventually making your way out to New York. Did you start in the Bay Area when you were at UC Berkeley?
Yeah, the Bay Area is my comedy home. I started stand-up right after graduating, and it was a great scene to start in back then. I kind of, it was a totally different comedy world back then, but I just thought it was really great to start in kind of a smaller scene and then move on to back then it was the 2A games where, it's the major leagues were New York and LA, and then everything else was minor leagues. And now I don't know if that's the same with social media, also with like Austin in particular becoming such a comedy hub. But yeah, it was great to start there for my first, I think, 4 or 5 years. And it was such a cool scene because back then, I mean, there was a ton of different rooms you could work. And it was weird. There was like 2 divided rooms, or different kinds of rooms. In the East Bay in Oakland, it was like these black rooms with black comedians and black audiences mostly. And San Francisco would be the opposite. And no one worked them both. but I did. So that gave me an exposure to all sorts of different kinds of audiences and really helped me grow as a comedian.
So you and I are around the same age. You're 44. I'm turning
Mhm.
46 in January. So I'm guessing you started early 2000s. Was Cobb Comedy Club, was that kind of the comedy store or comedy cellar of the Bay Area back then?
Well, it was there was two competing clubs back then. It was the Punchline
Okay.
and Cobb's was a smaller club in the Wharf. They had a fire and they moved to this become this giant club, and eventually Live Nation bought them both, so they're no longer competing or whatever. But I came up at the Punchline, which is also a classic club. It's one of these really old school clubs. The cool thing about old clubs now that people got to realize is that they're intimate. You can't really. That's why there's all these fight. Like they were going to shut the Punchline down. People rallied to save it because you can't really profit with a 250 seat club anymore. They want to all these clubs are like 350 or higher. They're these huge, almost theaters. But it's way cooler to see a club in a more intimate venue. Like the Comedy Cellar in New York is what, like maybe 100 people tops, and that makes a better experience. So that's where I started. It's a great club, the Punchline in San Francisco. It's Robin Williams has one of his specials is shot there,
Hmm.
so it's definitely got some history.
Yeah, Creek in the Cave, which is where you're going to be performing the weekend before Christmas, is another one of those smaller venues that it's almost like working out in a CrossFit gym. If I'm equating the different clubs in town to different styles of gym, let's say, it's more the CrossFit gym where it's got a grittiness to it that plays really well. There's a giant stuffed bear on stage too that most
Yeah.
comedians like to have a little bit of fun with as well. For you, as somebody who's been at it for a long time now, 20 plus years, how much time have you actually spent honing your craft here in town?
In Austin
Yeah.
or well, I mean I've done like several festivals there. It was like there was a year when I was there a lot. I would just did like I did maybe a Velveeta room
Oh
shows
yeah.
and I was at South by Southwest. I was at a there's these festivals that have come and gone in the time I've been doing it. There was this festival called Fun Fest. I don't know if you remember that
Oh
or if you're
yeah.
from there, but that
Yeah.
there was that for I did that one. So I was in town like it was like I did all these festivals for like 1 2 years and then I just didn't for a while. So I never really worked. I think I worked once Cap City as a feature act.
Hmm.
And then I really never worked there again. So it's kind of been with this resurgence or this rebirth of Austin as this comedy mecca that I've been back a lot. I did the Creek. I've headlined there before. It's a beautiful room. I was able to do the Mothership. I came through there with David Tell earlier this
Oh
year,
nice.
so I've seen that and what a great job they've done there. It's gorgeous. So yeah, it was not one of my main comedy cities coming up, but like in the last couple of years, I've been there quite a few times, and there was a period when I was at every festival, like 1 year, and then that all ended.
Does it surprise you at all, considering how much you've worked this city over time, that Austin has become this stand-up mecca?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I mean that's yes, it's so different. I really it was for in the middle of the last decade. It really seemed like Atlanta was coming this becoming this other spot.
Huh.
There was a lot of great comics coming out of there. There was all these great rooms and clubs, and they have the advantage of being like an actual like entertainment hub. In that there's Turner Broadcasting. There was adults. There's Adult Swim, which is used to have all these Cartoon Network, which is Adult Swim, and they had all these comedy shows. So there was actually the comedy business of like TV was based out of there for a minute. And then Austin, I mean, it really came out of nowhere. I mean, I guess, Rebecca did move her club down there at one point and there was like rumblings, but I'm always like, until I see it, I don't believe it. So I was like, sure, Rogan's gonna open a club there. I'll believe it when it opens. And then it opened. I'm like, wow. And it really did change. I mean, it's a weird like pandemic story where it just like it changed everything about the town, which is kind of a trip. I don't know. Are you from there?
Technically, I'm from the DFW area, but I went to school in Austin at UT and
Uh-huh.
have been here for most of my life at this point. So I claim Austin more than anywhere else in Texas.
Okay, I mean, hasn't the I mean, has it's almost like, and you tell me, the culture of the town seems to have been changed by these clubs, like in general, it seems like.
For sure. It's interesting because Austin was always a fun place to come to for comedians, just based on like interviewing comedians over time and just hearing them talk about this city. Like it was good crowds because it's an open-minded crowd. But
Mhm.
even though you did have the Velveeta Room and the old Cap City Comedy Club back in the day, and Like I remember seeing Doug Stanhope at what was considered a rock bar before it was cool for comedians to play rock bars. That was a hell of a show. At
Hell
one
yeah.
point, he yelled that he was going to stop the show if they didn't turn the channel off of Comedy Central because Carlos Mencia was on the stage at the time, or on the screen at the time. But so I guess to answer your question, it's not that surprising because Austin, even though it's considered this liberal hub in a conservative state, has always been willing to have a conversation. And maybe it's the checks and balances provided by the city being in this state. But when Rogan moved here and they started doing shows at Vulcan and Creek in the Cave, and then when he opened his place up too, it's like there's legitimately 4 to 5 really good comedy clubs in a very small patch of downtown. And from all accounts, those rooms are filled most every night because you never know who you're going to get to see. And that's not even taking into account Cap City, which is, it's not quite suburbs. It's still Austin proper, but that's in the Domain. So that's another option for people too. And this is a city that just craves entertainment and craves good conversations. Obviously, it has the live music capital of the world reputation to it as well. So it does make a lot of sense that comedy has hit it so big here. And as Rogan has talked about on his show and as other comedians have talked about, one of the interesting things about doing comedy here is you're not trying to do it to impress a TV exec or impress somebody else who may help you turn that into a sitcom or some other sort of TV deal. It strictly is about the comedy right now, and it's obviously hyper competitive too. But overall, iron sharpens iron, and competition breeds greatness. So we're seeing a lot of good things happen comedy wise at this point.
Sure. I mean, I'm lucky that I've never been doing comedy to impress an executive, to my detriment. So I've been on that mode for a while of not caring about that aspect. I care very much about the craft, but I've been doing it the way I want to do it for a while. So I guess I'll fit in there, and that should work out. But I do think there's nothing like a blue city and a red state. I think those are the best comedy clubs. You know what I mean? Because of that balance that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It really makes for very good crowds and very open-minded crowds. So I'm really looking forward to these shows.
Yeah, I feel like Nashville has a little bit of that. Denver may have a little bit of that too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what changes all these cities is they become transplant cities. So they kind of like, what are they even? What is the local culture? And who actually lives there and who's coming to these shows? And it becomes a little weird like that. I feel like it just becomes a little odd because of that.
All right, last question on Austin comedy, and then we're going to move on to some other things. But you did mention doing a spot at the Comedy Mothership, which has obviously gotten a ton of love since it opened up back in late March. I've been to a bunch of shows there at this point, and it's a beautiful club. I mean, it just feels like a great space from the audience perspective. What makes it such a good place from a comedian's perspective?
Well, I think it's I find it to be like actually literally beautiful. They put work into the design. So it seems, comedy has gotten so kind of hip in the last few decades, but like no one designing the interior of the clubs has made it seem cool. It still feels, every comedy club still feels a little bit like a kind of corny comedy club or like a throwback to like another time. Some of them are cool. I guess the Cellar is pretty cool. Some of the New York ones. But I just really appreciate the cool design of the interior. I think it makes the whole thing seem like, man, this is the spot, and this is like a place where I'd hang out there if it was a bar. You know what I mean? I'd hang out. I just like the way it's set up. It's got a cool character and it's a great vibe. That's what I would say.
So even though your comedy special talks quite a bit about your breakup, I need to give you some congrats because you got married a little bit earlier this year.
That's right.
How has married life been? I know you all had been living together for a little bit longer than that, but is married life everything that you had hoped and dreamed to this point, Louis?
I mean, I don't know what I hoped and dreamed married life would be, but I'm very happy to be married, and it's been going great. At first, I was like worried. I was like, it took me so long to put out the special. I retaped it, I wanted to tape it in 2020, which of course no one's plans worked out that year, except for some people who made some vaccines who did really well, but everyone else didn't do as well. And so I had to push it back, and then I taped it in May 22, and then it took me till October 23 to put it out. So I was like, oh man, it's really like this big breakup special, but I'm happily married. Is that going to strike people as weird? But I think hopefully people are like, oh, it has a happy ending. It turned out okay. So married life has been great. It's just been a whirlwind of a year. We got engaged in January, married in July, honeymooned also in the midst of that, and finished and released this special. So it's been a crazy year, but of all good things. So I'm pretty happy, I would say.
What was the biggest highlight of honeymooning in Japan?
The biggest highlight first of all, the bidets on every toilet, phenomenal.
What?
That yes,
Wow.
they're just public. I'm telling you, like in a park restroom has a bidet in it. I'm in New York. I'm used to park restrooms being like a hobo bathhouse, but these have like robot toilets that are cleaning my ass for me. It is phenomenal. But I'd say besides the bidets, the people are so friendly. I'd say the cool thing about Japan is it's the country that's the most different from America, but also just as comfortable, if not more comfortable, like more modern. So, you want to go to a place that's exotic or crazy different from here. Like I've been to India and it is exotic and different and so interesting, but it's also like it's you're not going to be generally as comfortable as you would be here. There's changes that make it harder. Like and there everything's just easier actually. Besides the language barrier, but people are so friendly. It was a great trip. As soon as I left, I was like thinking about, man, I got to go back.
I would have a hard time in India at this point, I think, just because of the general reputation of you going there and getting sick, but also knowing
Yes.
that the way that they clean themselves after going number two is to use the left hand, I believe, and then the right hand is supposed to be for shaking hands and then for cooking too. But how much hand washing is actually going on? Yeah, that,
I
that one
think
makes a little bit
I assume
nervous.
there's hand washing going on. I went there. I just assumed that, but I hadn't even thought about that. It is technically. They're using that because they're splashing water up in their ass, which is technically cleaner than paper. Maybe assuming that they're washing afterwards.
It's
I
like
don't
the
think they're. I didn't realize they were digging in there. So if there's digging going on, man, I hadn't really thought about this. But that is the trip where it's like you are in the rest of Asia, and oftentimes the toilet is literally a hole in the ground, whereas Japan, the toilet is a robot. So that's how advanced it is. It's just a crazy different thing, and it makes it's embarrassing coming back because Tokyo is a bigger city than New York,
yeah.
and somehow it's cleaner than here, and it's just kind of like, oh, I feel embarrassed, about how filthy we are, and they're so clean and so friendly. It's just a great place.
There's just, from what I've been told, there's just a general level of societal respect that is human to human, but like, take for instance how they treat their elderly. They revere their
Mhm.
elderly versus elderly people here, and sometimes they earn it themselves. But elderly people here, unless it's somebody who's a direct family member, nobody gives two what's about it.
Oh yeah, totally. Almost every country is better to their elders than we are
Yeah,
in
that's
America,
fair. That's
unfortunately.
fair.
But especially in Japan. The first thing that blew me away there was not just that they have these weird like lines going down the street every sidewalk, and I'm like, what is this about? It's a little column for if a blind person wants to follow it, they can use their cane and it'll take them to, and they can put their cane in this thing and they'll lead them straight down the street.
Wow.
It seems so easy to do, and it's just and they do that for people, and to me that just speaks to how really they're trying to take care of their community, so they're just great like that.
Very thoughtful. Thinking about bidets and also taking it back to 2020, which was a terrible year for just about everybody, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
While everybody was going on their toilet paper runs, my big investment was getting a bidet for my
Smart.
house, my wife, and kids. Unfortunately, I must have gone too cheap on the bidet because this thing, they must use it to spray prisoners down who entered jail for the very first time. And this is something where you have to be very careful. Otherwise, you're going to lose skin off of your anus. So unfortunately,
Yes.
it's not getting the use that I hoped it would when it was originally purchased.
You have to tough it out and you have to grow thicker butthole skin, I think is what you have to do. But that's true. Because in Japan, man, so you think like I don't need the top of the line bidet with the warm water. It's the difference between a warm hug for your butthole and knives being shot at your butthole. These warm ones in Japan were so pleasant. It was so nice. I'm really I gotta upgrade my bidet here. The one. Another thing that was weird was I figured, my bidet here. I thought I installed it wrong because every time I had to turn it on, I had to lean to the right or it wouldn't work right. I had to lean, and I'm like, man, I must have installed it wrong. Happened to every bidet I used in Japan. So apparently, I have an off-kilter asshole, and I didn't know that. I learned that in Japan, which is a weird thing to know about myself.
Hey, you know what? It's all about self-discovery throughout our lives, not just in childhood. So congrats, I guess, on learning that one.
Right.
I guess we're going to stay in
Very
Asia
positive.
now because I heard you mention that you performed some shows in China previously. You've also performed
Yeah.
in continental Europe too. What was
Mhm.
it like performing in China? Just, obviously people have more respect for other languages outside of the US, and so China is very fluent in English, but did you have to modify your act at all to get through to the crowds there?
China was all expats. They were all
Mm.
foreigners living there for the most part. A few, very few locals, maybe a couple, but not many. So that was all expat shows. The continental Europe shows were were all English, and some of them were local, and some of them were, because people move around the EU these days. So there's people from different European countries, and their common language they all use is English. So they can all speak English, but I say there's fluent English, and then there's a level above that, and that's comedy English. So I don't enjoy touring in these places where English isn't the first language because over the course of the tour, I end up dumbing down the act, and I'm taking out all the. It's not just quote references. It's literally like things that take you just have to know the language a little bit better to get. And I've taken out all the jokes that I really like by the end of the tour, and it bums me out. What the one cool one that I really did was I did a show in Russia that was kind of a last minute thing. I was doing this Baltic tour where we hit Estonia, Latvia, and then it ended in Finland. And then I had time off before I was going to Norway and Finland before there was a war. You could take basically like a bullet train straight to St. Petersburg. So I
Mm.
decided to do that. And I got there, and this was like right. This was a while ago, so it was cool when comedy was just first coming up internationally, which is within our life. It's just we're talking like 8 years ago. You could find on Facebook, you'd look up comedy in the city, you'd meet the first comedian from this country ever, literally the first comedian to ever be in this country. And I can message them, and they'd be like, "Hey, you're a comedian, you're in town. I'll show you around." And they'd show me around, and it was awesome. So I met up with this. I wish I could remember his name. I feel bad at forgetting his name, but this very friendly, very great Russian comic who showed me around St. Petersburg. He's like, "You want to do a show? I'll set up a little show for you." So we do this show at this little bar. He sets it up. It's maybe 50 people there. I'm doing the act, bombing for like
Mm.
half an hour, like no laughs. I'm like, did he do this on purpose? Is this revenge for the Cold War? And there's one guy up front that's laughing, and there's a second mic on stage. I'm like, "You speak English, huh?" And I'm like, "Can you translate my jokes?" So I give him a microphone, and now we're doing the act line for line, killing for the second half hour. They just couldn't understand me at all. They couldn't speak English. They're like, or they thought they could speak English, but not to the level I needed them to. And once the jokes were in Russian, they were crushing. So it was pretty cool.
Wow, that is cool. What a turn of events too. Good,
Yeah.
good thinking of you. Like really thinking on your feet, I guess, and getting
Yeah.
them
I mean,
up
you
there.
think shouldn't have taken me a full half hour, but yes.
So if I'm I don't want to misstate this here, but you are a regular fixture at Skankfest, correct?
I've done two Skankfests. I did
Okay.
one when it was just an up and coming small thing in Queens, and then this year I had the pleasure of doing the Vegas shows as well.
How crazy is it that that little alternative comedy festival has turned into what it has now?
Yeah, it was wild. They have so many fans, and they're so they you'd think they'd be these like wild, crazy, maniacs, but they were all very chill. There was
Yeah.
like no drama when I was there. Everyone was very respectful and as much as they can be, and they're just fans of comedy. It was pretty cool to see. Have you been?
I have not just yet. No, there was a Skankfest Houston that I'm regretting not going to a couple of years ago, but at some
Hmm.
point I'll try and make it there. But again, it's like a wealth of riches thing here in Austin where pretty much everybody
Sure.
who shows up at Skankfest I'm going to be able to see here in town. And unfortunately, as you're now at least partially aware with the wife, but with a wife and two young kids, it's
Hmm.
not as easy to just explain away that I'm going to a comedy festival for 3 or 4 days and leave the wife holding the bag in the process.
I mean, it's for business. I mean, right? You're gonna go there. You're gonna have some record some podcasts, like right? Is that no?
Theoretically, and if the recordings didn't end up happening, then there were some technical issues, you know?
That's what I'm saying, man. There's ways around this. You can figure it out if you want to go. But I get it. It is like when you live in a city that's like where everyone's going to come through anyway. You're right. Take advantage of it, you know?
So I think Skankfest popularity is just another example of comedy being in a sort of golden era right now where
Sure.
people are very accepting of comedy. And maybe it's in response to just how oppressed we all felt in 2020 and 2021. But with that comes new crowds. And with new crowds comes the responsibility of understanding some of the unwritten rules of watching a show at a comedy club, which is why I love asking comedians if they have a most important unwritten rule for somebody listening right now to understand how to conduct yourself, I guess, when you go see a show at Creek in the Cave when you're there the 22nd and 23rd or any time after that.
Well, first, I would just say that I'm from a generation, and it's really every generation until this crowd work craze kind of went nuts here, where that's not the main for most comedians. That's not the crux of the show. We actually don't want to talk to you. We've prepared things and we would like to say them to you without you interrupting. And no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you do. I mean, I do, it's nice, but what I have something I prepared that I'd like to show you instead of finding out what you do, you know? So how about, it's just you laugh and then you don't laugh, and that's it. That's all you really need to do. And just remember, it's not about you. It's about everyone having a good time at the show. And so that means if something bothers you, you just sit that one out. You just don't laugh. That's it. That's all you got to do. If something bothers you, I get it. Everything's not for everybody. You can not laugh at that. Hopefully the next one you like more, you know?
That's right. Don't turn it into a Mystery Science Theater 3000 experience.
Yes, no
Laugh
need
when
for
you need
that.
to laugh, clap when you need to clap, and only talk to the comedian if they address you first. That's your cue.
There you go.
It's not yelling it
Yes.
out. You know,
Yeah,
the social media clip thing and the crowd work, it's turned into a double-edged sword for comedians because it's gotten them more popular, but it has enabled people who don't know any better to think that that is just a part of the experience. When in reality, as you
totally.
just said, is it's not. Like, you guys are there doing a performing art, and it's
Yeah.
very interrupting that is disruptive to the entire process, and not just ruins it for the comedian, it ruins it for everybody else who has paid a ticket to sit there that night.
Totally. And it also is bad. It's I mean, look at what happened to Matt Rife. It's bad for material too. He was a crowd work, and I've heard that I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but I know he was gained this huge following through crowd work clips. Apparently he is pretty good at crowd work. And then he tried to do a show that's all material, and people are saying it was lacking. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But that's what happens when you're forced to do whatever's working to get the crowd going. Then you want to do, something different, do something based on material. It's hard to translate.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, last question now, Louis. You're coming to the live music capital of the world. You're a huge music fan. What is
Yes.
a music recommendation you have for everybody right now that folks may be unfamiliar with?
Oh man. Oh, I wish I had my phone. I wish I had this coming. I can't remember Can you grab my phone, baby? Oh wait, I have my phone. Never mind. There's so many new bands. I really do love music. It's my first love, and that's it's my main thing these ever always. It was what I loved before comedy. So let me see. Who do I really like these days? That's new. I like what? Oh, Idols. I love Idols. That's this rock band out of England.
Okay.
I think they're so good. Who else? So Idols I definitely would recommend. Oh, there's this other band. They're really trippy. I can't remember. Sorry, my memory is not the best due to being old. Wet Leg is dope. There's this band called Wet Leg, also out of England, that's really good.
Okay.
I love them. And this band called Jockstrap that's really trippy. So I'd say those maybe those three right now, just off top, or almost off top. Once I remember their names, Wet Leg and Idols. And the cool thing is, Wet Leg and Idols, I like some of their albums. I like full front to back, which how rare is it to listen to an album from the beginning to the end? And so that's kind of what I've been into lately. Is kind of I've been back on my rock thing. So that's who I'm into. And then strangely enough, I'm into I listen to jazz when I write, so it's always old jazz stuff. So I will also recommend Duke Ellington, but late Duke Ellington in the late 60s, early 70s, and this dude named Chico Hamilton, who's also a great jazz guy too. So those are my two jazz ones. and those are my rock recommendations.
You listen to much Mingus?
I love Mingus. Mingus is one of my favorite artists of all
Yeah.
time. Oh man, Mingus is my favorite. I tried to get a Mingus song or a Duke Ellington song to intro the special, and I couldn't make it happen. But man, Mingus is just my favorite. So and I always love Mingus, and I would ask musicians, I'm like, why, what else can I listen to that's like Mingus? It's Duke Ellington, man. You think, oh, no one's like Mingus, and he's such an original, and it's like you listen to this Ellington, it's like, oh, he got a lot from him. And there's an album with Duke Ellington and Mingus and Max Roach together that is one of my favorite jazz albums of all time. It's called Money Jungle.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to check that out. And I'm going to encourage people go to louiskatz.com to check out your work. That's LOUISKATZ. Watch the new special and realize how hilarious it is, and that Louis got some new material that he's going to be flexing at Creek in the Cave. A couple shows on December 22nd. That's a Friday. The 23rd, the Saturday as well. creekandcave.com for tickets there. And you can go to louiskatz.com to follow him on social and everything else too. Louis, thank you so much for the time, man. I think I'm going to be hitting up one of the Friday shows, so I look forward to checking out the new stuff.
All right, man.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. And thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. Talk to you next time on Books on Pod.